Hello, Reverend MeeLing, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Lady MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle. I've been known by a few names. Still the same person though, nevertheless. And that doesn't include like other names. So that is what it is. That being said, I was listening to not, but he goes by just another Brandon. He goes by on his channel, not just he goes by just another channel, but I think it's not just another channel. It's a personal opinion. I don't think I'm the only person who thinks that way. I could be wrong. It is what it is. So while I have completed a few videos in reference to certain things where I've agreed or had commentary, I do have to disagree in certain regards to the most recent video. Not fully. There are certain things that I do agree with. Though I don't necessarily agree that the mayor and the governor of the state of Texas don't care about business, because realistically, without taxes, they don't get their paychecks. So there is that. I kind of have to say that I disagree respectfully, nonetheless. Respectfully, I have to say that, at least in my opinion. I doubt that they don't want to receive their paychecks. I'm sure they still have a way to ensure that, and then at the same time, don't want that money to run out, right? I've been a big proponent, despite the fact that I don't like higher taxes. I understand the reason for them. For example, without taxes being paid in the local area in regards to city and state, well, fire department, law enforcement, EMS, even elected officials, that sort of stuff. That's how they get paid. But not only that, that goes into the construction to keep the roadways clear, as well as maintenance of the roads, the traffic signals, so on and so forth. All that sort of stuff comes from local taxes. Now, federal taxes, well, and the other thing as far as local taxes is the National Guard. National Guard winds up being paid through local taxes, though subsidized at times of emergency through the federal taxes. That being said, in regards to federal taxes, then you have the broader spectrum aspect of airports being taken care of. For those who like to fly, I'm not one of those who can, because of the altitude changes in the commercial airline type stuff. No offense to them, it's just I can't be the only person who has issues with that. As far as like, I know I'm not the only person who had a head injury and deals with headaches and migraines, so I would guesstimate there are some people who maybe they didn't have a head injury like I did on Palm Sunday in 2000. Nonetheless, they have certain issues when it comes to the flying. However, federal funds also make sure that the aspects of Congress and Senate, but also not forgetting at all the FBI, the CIA, the White House, the Department of Justice, the Pentagon officials, so all of the branches of the United States of America's armed forces, so on and so forth, as well as healthcare in the ones that are connected, like over different states in comparison to the local run ones in certain regards. So that is just my personal little tidbit on that. Real quick. That being said, I had gone to take care of my car. I had to get an oil change. At least I received a notification to make sure that it was taken care of. So I took care of it and didn't know about some of the techie stuff, so that's surprise. Nobody's surprised. That knows me? No. And again, in federal wise, that goes into the NSA as well, but that's a law enforcement in the federal aspect sort of way, similarly with FBI and CIA and stuff like that. U.S. Marshals. so on and so forth. So, while some people might not realize that, there is that. And so, I don't necessarily agree in regards to the mayor not caring. I think in some ways, yes, but in other ways, no. It depends. It depends in different aspects. Personal opinion. It's just my personal opinion on that. So that being said, in reference of the CDC, which is usually federally, if I'm not mistaken, in that regard, so I'm going to, those who have listened or watched prior videos will understand. In that regard, I had a discussion with someone today while waiting for my car. And I had discussed how I have fluorescent lighting types of tattoos. So there's this one, there's that one, there's one that you can't necessarily see without a black light or a specific type of, whatever type of camera that is, that would pick up that sort of stuff. Same thing with that one. And then my Phoenix tattoo has black light in it as well. Black light ink, I should say, or reflective black light ink. And so, where some people thought that whatever their opinions were in regards to my tattoos, as I've explained many times over, not just in writing, of course, but also in discussions, the aspects of the assistance for me personally. I do not believe that every person should have a tattoo unless they want one. That is a personal opinion of mine. I doubt that there are many people who would disagree with that. You don't get a tattoo unless you really want one. And I don't agree with the references, of course, when you look at the Holocaust and how those guys obviously were tattooed against their will. Realistically. The ones that were in the concentration camps, in Auschwitz, and the other ones. There were quite a few camps, quite a few concentration camps. And each and every one of the different captives had, a set of numbers that were put into their flesh. Some of them had numbers with letters, but it depended on which camp they were in. And so, while I don't agree everybody should have tattoos, because, not everybody needs them. Not in the same way, of course. There are people who choose to get tattoos and have chosen to get tattoos well before I ever got a tattoo. Well before I ever got one, not forgetting as many as I have. In that regard, it was I have said in discussions well before ever putting in writing that I have viewed my head injury as a double-edged sword because of a multitude of aspects. In regards to the double-edged sword, in reference to 9/11, I do not remember everybody's name that I grew up going to church with that I would have remembered. I do not remember everybody's name as far as elementary school, middle school, high school, despite the fact that I used to have my yearbooks. So on and so forth. And not just New Jersey, but even Illinois. No denying that. And so it hurts for me personally because of not being able to remember everybody. It's never been an offense sort of thing, despite what I was accused of when in Illinois. There were people who genuinely accused me of pretending, and I was like, no, I really have no idea. Like, I had people that told me when I went back a few times, that, oh, you never liked Illinois. Well, depends on the situation. It's not that I didn't like Illinois, it's just certain situations, and I personally felt that I would have done better in Chicago with my attitude. Being from the East Coast and walking around where I grew up walking around, Crystal Lake, Illinois was not necessarily the most conducive for that sort of thing. Like, I got along with a lot of people, usually males though. I didn't get along with that many females. There were females I got along with, but similarly to New Jersey, very few select number of females that I got along with. And actually far less females in Illinois than I did in New Jersey. Mainly because of that attitude aspect. And not in a negative way, just one of those, I didn't have patience. At all. Like, whatsoever. In any way. Like, no patience. Like, I had some, but not that much. Compared to now, by technicalities. Compared to now. I mean, how long did it take me to get aware and then angry about the problems with my Medal of Honor art project? That was several years. Whereas when I was in Illinois and especially New Jersey, you know, it was like that, like instantaneously. You know, same thing in regards to, like, you know, if you take the comparison of when I was in the state of Texas before winding up in Washington State, I was very calm. Like, despite the amount of grief I received, it was one of those, no, you don't understand how calm I am. You really don't. Like, if you were able to ever meet people who knew me, they'd let you know how nice I am in comparison. Not just by words, but irony of an individual in Washington State, a female that said I had resting cunt face, and like, that... You just have that when you're born and raised in New Jersey, not forgetting when you're in the military. Like, it's just natural. Like, not just the head injury aspect, I don't deny that, but there are military guys and people from the East Coast who understand that face, where it's like, it don't matter what's going on. You could be in the best mood ever. But if you got stuff you gotta handle, you got that freaking 2,000-mile stare where you're just gonna make sure that you can call that whatever you want until stuff is squared away. That's it. So, in that regard, and going back to, in reference to the East Coast and that double-edged sword, very much aware of the fact that it wasn't just the East Coast that was affected on 9/11. Like, despite what some people who did not have direct contact, like certain individuals that I knew in the state of Texas, who ironically told me the opposite of what my biological mother and biological sister said. So Anna and Patricia, my biological mother and my biological sister, made fun of me and were aggravated with me for not remembering people. Whereas in the state of Texas, I had a bunch of people that would tell me, again, here's the reference of a double-edged sword. Well, you don't remember people, right? So how important is it? It's actually extremely important. And how dare you belittle my opinions and my feelings that are genuine because of your assumptions of what you think I should be and how I should view things. And don't forget the fact that I was in the military. I did join to assist where I could. So you belittling the fact that I had the injury that I had, both sides, by the way, how dare you? Who do you think you are? You're not a special snowflake. You know, I mean, as far as in regards to Anna and Patricia, first off, Patricia barely remembered anyone. So who was she to go and talk about me having memory issues? The only person she remembered was Mindy Dong. And that's it. She barely remembered anybody from, like, Old Tenet Presbyterian Church. I mean, she remembered, like, Rachel, Joshua, and Catherine Sauer from, like, choir. But that was it. She didn't remember, like, a whole bunch of stuff. She was 4 years young, or is 4 years younger. So, you know, that was one of those, like, type of things to her. As far as Anna, You know, well, do you remember this person? Well, no, how did I know? Well, they were at her work. What? Like, I mean, you know, the names that she would give me were not people that I interacted with on a continuous basis in the same regards of Old Tennant Presbyterian Church. So why are you, you know, getting aggravated at me because I don't remember people you worked with that I once in a while got to meet at a company picnic every now and then? No offense towards them, of course. No offense at all. Just one of those, like, I did have a head injury, and I don't think it takes a head injury to figure out that even if I didn't have a head injury, how many people are at Prudential in Holmdel, New Jersey? I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there. But Anna would get aggravated with me and then belittle me because of not remembering her employees. And it's like, or people she worked with. And it's like, really? Really? Seriously, please. Then, you know, as far as certain people, not all, let me clarify that, not all people in the state of Texas did I have discussions where they were like, oh, just forget about it, because, you know, the irony of being told, just forget about it, by people in the state of Texas. About the East Coast. The ironic dichotomy of that. And then thinking it was funny to do it in the East Coast accent, and it's one of those, like, don't disrespect my people. Do not disrespect my people. You don't want to see that side of me. Because you just don't want to see that side of me. You do not want to see the East Coast side of me come out. There are people who know. I may have forgotten names, but there are people who have not forgotten mine. Like, I'm just... or my face from when I was younger. I'm just saying. And so it was one of those, you best keep this. You don't know. You don't know. But in regards to 9/11 and that double-edged sword, it's one of those, literally in that regard, of both sides. Not forgetting my now dead ex-husband and his family. Being like, similarly to the ones of the state in regards to San Antonio, some of them, again, usually civilians, not military guys. Now, there were civilians that were understanding and sympathetic, but then there were a lot that, you know, were on the other side of that. And so it was one of those, you don't know. And then they never took into consideration, and not just in San Antonio, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area as well. Not like that wasn't going to be an issue. It wasn't an issue then either. Because how many people went into the DFW and Love Airfield airports that were grounded in the airplanes? Same thing when it comes to, you know, the state of Washington. How many people in the Seattle-Tacoma airport, international, by the way, you know, not, I mean, realistically, and so the dichotomy of so many people, and then Austin, with the Austin International Airport, one of those, are you kidding me? Oh, just forget about 9/11. No, I can't. You don't understand. It's not the same. It's not the same for me as it is for you. And by a lot of accounts, in certain regards, it's not the same for me as it is for a lot of military guys. Because a lot of military guys, if they were in basic training at the time of the event, or about to graduate, or whatever it was, well, this is what we were trained for. We're about to go. And it was an instant wake-up call. Like, good morning. Then you got the guys, and that's similar to the AIT guys, because the ones that were graduating basic training, it's one of those, oh, my job training is going to be so much harder, and it's going to be pushed in a different way because of all this stuff going on. Then you got to take into consideration the guys that were already done with training and at whatever duty stations they were at. Some of them having already been overseas, so knowing and understanding certain aspects, and it's on our homeland soil, sort of thing. And so while a lot of those guys, and not forgetting the different other levels of government in that regard, where a lot of those guys had to focus on that, and their spouses had to worry about which way they were going, what was going to happen, what was going to go where. Civilians, depending on what they had as far as businesses, depended on how they wound up doing stuff and which way they wound up going, what was done. Not forgetting the different elected officials. And again, if I'm not mistaken, the Pentagon is not that far from Washington, D.C., the Capitol building. Right? Not forgetting that. So where everybody had the obvious, understandable, instant panic, instant fear, instant what needs to be done, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but which way do we go? Which, you know, as far as civilians, which way do we go? As far as law enforcement guys, which way do we go? As far as military guys, what training needs to be done now? What do we need to do to prepare? Because obviously, part of being in the military is you are prepared in certain regards to be ready to go to war if you have to. That's part of the job. Anybody who wants to claim that when they signed that dotted line that they didn't know of the possibility of having to, no, they knew even in the smallest sense that there was the possibility. That is part of being in the military, whatever branch, whether it is the Army, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, the Marine Corps, the Navy, it don't matter. Period and end of story. So where everybody else was doing as they could in whichever aspect of life, you know, and, you know, scientists essentially like, well, you know, we were looking only at this, like, what just happened? Like, you know, in certain regards, like, we were concerned about immunizations. That's not an immunization. You can't immunize that. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain in certain regards in that reference. So like the CDC and guys like that. Medical services, depending where they were, depended on what was needing to be done. Obviously on the East Coast, there were a lot of guys that had to round the clock. In other states, depends on what their clearance level was prior. So if they had prior military experience and they had enough aspects in regard to where they were under that 6-year point for IRR, let's go. You need to come help out at the airplanes and stuff like that. We need your expertise as best as we can. And I'll leave that one on a aspect which some people don't realize, that when those airplanes were grounded, because they had to be. They had to be. While the news media had to focus. Had to. Because there was so much going on. So what could be the balancing point for them where they could not ignore the footage that was coming in as far as the towers, the Pentagon, and so on and so forth? But how did they have to balance that? And then they wind up getting, you know, berated by people. Well, you know, so they tired to see. Well, they don't get to stop that. They don't get to unsee that sort of stuff. And so, you know, you got the guys that, you know, how is it to balance that with everything else, so much stuff? Well, the airports, just, you know, people sitting. That's like not much. I mean, it's important, But compared to the other aspect, you know, you got to make the call where you got to make the call to try to, because, you know, as many people, like, I felt so bad I felt so bad for so many people at that time. Like, I cannot even go into how many, like, just realistically. Nonetheless, in reference to the media, it was one of those, read between the lines. Despite listening to the news, read between the lines is the only thing I could think of. And it was just one of those, okay. They cannot report on everything at that time. Number one, for legalities, because of having the issues from the towers aspect. And the footage, like, just everywhere. Again, what is the balancing in regard? And then having the individuals, oh, we're tired of hearing about this, we're tired of seeing this, and yet they were doing what they could to actually balance that by not focusing 100% of the time on that and giving some perspective of different angles, which was not nearly to the detriment in regards. Yes, there was, but again, didn't see what was going on inside those airports. And so, yes, you got the footage in reference to people sitting, sleeping, waiting, because the planes were grounded. I know for a fact there have to be individuals, and you can call it a conspiracy theory, but I know this is reality. How long did it take some of those people to get the airplanes cleared out? How long did some of those airplanes have to sit on the tarmac before people could get in? How many people didn't leave walking out of those airplanes? Except for law enforcement, fire department, medical, military guys. You could almost make a correlation when you look at the current time with the COVID-19 aspect in that regard, because were there certain areas where the only way they could breathe was to have the air masks come down and put them on their faces because of everything else that was going on? Or is there a correlation in regards to the law enforcement and fire department and EMS guys who had to put face masks on because they didn't know what they were going to go into? I could be wrong. I don't think I am. So while I had to deal with the double-edged sword in regard to memory aspect and that sort of stuff, at the exact same time, there was another double-edged sword. The fact that despite my now dead ex-husband and that whole issue there, when he was, at the time, realistically, I had my son that I needed to think about. And not just my son, because of course, as weird as that may sound or come across, I knew I was not the only person who had an infant, or maybe someone on the way, or about to be pregnant, or whatever. So I made suggestions. When I went, first off, I admit I spoke out loud. As soon as seeing the screen pop up with the airplanes, because the TV was off when that happened. What occurred in my life at that time on 9/11, my now dead ex-husband ran upstairs. And I said, "What are you doing here and not at school?" And he said, "Didn't you hear what happened?" No. TV went on. I didn't touch it. Nothing. And for me, what I had in my dream back when I was growing up in New Jersey, those two images came right there. I had the image of the basement of the World Trade Center and the airplane all at once. And all I could do was speak. I got in trouble for speaking, by the way. I dealt with that because it was without hesitation. I hope they ground every airplane. I hope they do this. I hope they do that. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I wound up dealing with that from my now dead ex-husband. And he just, it is what it is. I cleaned myself up. I went and got my son squared away. And he was born on the 2nd of September in 2001, by the way. And got him in the car seat with the diaper bag that I had, walked across. And while some people, and this is going to also tie into some other stuff in regards to the NSA aspect. And, you know, it's not like the NSA has only been around since then President Barack Obama. I'm just going to throw that out there. NSA has been around a couple of years. And so, where maybe they heard me speak and that stuff made sense, maybe not. I don't know. I don't have the exact proof by obvious accounts. Nonetheless, irony of how certain things occurred. And so, after going and getting that stuff squared away and going across the parking lot, literally just across the parking lot from where my townhouse that I was in to the apartment complex building, the staff was there and they were crying and upset, understandable. It's like, well, why don't you go donate some blood because they're going to need blood? Or why don't you pray, or why don't you do this, or why don't you do that? And it was just, no, I can't. Where's the Air Force guy? Where's the Air Force guy? Where's the Air Force guy? Where is the Air Force guy? And then the Air Force guy showed up and we talked. I'm not ashamed of that, by the way. I wonder sometimes with certain types of that survived, but nonetheless. I know I'm not the only one. Especially when it comes to my Medal of Honor art project. I know I'm not the only one when it comes to what certain individuals chose to do. Just saying. Montana 2017. Not forgetting Montana 2016 at the Montana Vortex. I'm sure that if people were to review that on my Facebook profile that I had posted the video, they might recognize certain faces in different areas, whether it's Washington State or Montana. That being said, so obviously the CDC had to be called into those airplanes, right? Am I wrong on that? I don't think I'm wrong on that. I'm sure that they had to. And so, how many of those guys were ready for that? The answer is none. Because it wasn't just the CDC guys that were not ready for that. And so while I dealt with the double-edged sword of the multiple different ways, it's one of those, you don't know how lucky you are right now. Because the irony of me having issues with technology, there is no denying that at all. I don't know, I know they're called chippy things, and I still remember the big flop. Like, I remember the 5x5 floppy disks. I remember the 5x5. I do not remember, I had to be told, I do not remember the 5x5 floppy disks getting smaller. I don't. I was told they got to like 3" by 3" or whatever. I do not remember that. That is gone from it. And then like when the little chippy things came out and the little sticky things and whatever, I'm sure they have like more professional names than little chippy thing and little sticky thing, but you know, whatever is what it is. To me, they're little chippy things and little sticky things. And I'm sure I've been told what they're actually called. It doesn't matter, they're not a floppy disk. That's all I know, is they're not a floppy disk. And I have a difficult time remembering a bunch of stuff, and I've had a few things that I've had to remember, so no offense to the techie guys. It's just it's a chippy thingy. And a sticky thing. Whatever. External whatever. It's not a floppy disk, that's what I know. It's not a floppy disk. I can laugh at that, I don't care. So, well, you know, the aspects of, I understand in certain regards, in certain areas, taxes needing to be raised in certain ways. I also, everybody has to budget, right? I can't be the only person who has to budget. So, you know, whenever the state of Texas and the United States of America and the world gets open again, my question I pose to you is, what are you going to do? Are you going to do more to be better and all that sort of stuff? Are you going to maintain the same type of lifestyle? Are you going to make sure that you actually get immunized? Are you going to be more honest? Are you going to be more truthful or not? What is your choice? Right? Freedom of choice. When the day comes, when everything is open again, whether it's done in phases or whether it's all at once, what is your choice going to be? Are you going to take the time that everybody has had and reflect that we've had plenty of time, right? Whatever day this is, I mean, it's the 11th of May, 2020. When did the original day of quarantine begin? Sometime in March 2020? Or was it February? I don't know. Nonetheless, what have you done with this time? What are you going to do until the day comes? And then when the day comes, what are your choices going to be? There was already essentially a reset back then. It was already a reset. Everything came to a stop, right? It's a rhetorical question. The answer is yes. Everything came to a stop. Some places more of a stop than others, obviously, but at this point it is everywhere. So, at this point, what are you going to do when everything gets reopened? Are you going to fix things and make amends? Are you going to be what? What are you going to do? I can't be anybody but me. So, you know, I know my answer is I'm going to be me. Because I can't do anything else. I can't be anybody other than me. You know, maybe some of the songs that I've put together, maybe I'll be able to like actually like do that in like a professional way. Or maybe, you know, whatever. There's so many things, right? But what are you going to do? Are you going to look forward to the moment you get to see people again? The people that you do get to see, how are you going to treat them? Are you going to apologize for prior issues? Are you going to pretend that they never existed? Or are you going to pretend to be someone that you're not some more? Or are you going to be more truthful? I mean, realistically, not like you can hide what you have done. Again, the NSA has been around for a while. Not like they're the only law enforcement, but they are ones that have been around a really long time. A lot longer than the aspects of what the Obamagate thing. It's one of those that's been going on a while. I have no problem with them. I also didn't know they existed in certain regards, despite the fact that I wrote about them. I didn't know that. I mean, not in any offense towards them, just one of those, like, there's a lot of government agencies. I can't be the only one who knows that. And, but nonetheless, I also made a promise many years ago. Many, many years ago, before my head injury, by the way. There were a few guys I knew back in New Jersey. Not just New Jersey, but in more specific. Where we discussed certain things. And it was like, yeah, this, that, and the other. And it was, oh my God, do you promise to always be nice? It's like it can only be me. Unless I have a reason to be mad, I mean, I know I have a little bit of a quick temper, but, why? What do you mean? Well, can you always be nice to the techie guys? Why wouldn't I? Oh, thanks. Why wouldn't I mean, realistically, why wouldn't I? And that followed well after the aspects of I had an injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. There have been a few techie guys at Geek Squad that, I've had to, make sure they had some time because of certain other people that were just being rude to the Geek Squad guys. Just say, I didn't go full New Jersey, obviously. I didn't go full New Jersey. But people stepped back. People gave them some. They didn't have a choice. I did not give them a choice. I will acknowledge that, because when I would get up into the here, I don't know what I did, but it's broken. But go take a few minutes of a break. I know I'm not your manager, but go ahead. Because I just watched what you just dealt with that. There's so much about techie, but here, then why are you giving it to the Geek Squad guys if you know so much about techie stuff? And then, a couple times where some male or female, I don't care. Don't care. You're going to just deal with it and you're going to wait. That's just the way it went. That's just, step back. Don't make me. Just saying. I kept my promise. Though apparently, with that NSA aspect, there obviously has to be some, yeah, we have the look, she's like ready to. But then also in regards to with my scuba diving. Okay. So after my scuba dive, specifically that one, though obviously the NSA had been around doing some stuff at that time, I'm sure at some point, and I had already broken however many technology things, not on purpose, but nonetheless, I'm sure at that point, and it was then President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden in office at that time, when that was 2009. So they had already been sworn in. I really doubt that after surfacing at some point in time, I doubt that there was never anyone that was like, so, we got something to tell you. Okay. Do you know how deep the ocean is? Like the Marianas? Yeah, no, the abyss. Do you know how deep the abyss is? Somebody in the Navy probably knows that. No, that's why it's called the abyss. Because we don't know how deep it is. Because it's called the abyss for a reason. It's the abyss. And like after a certain point, we don't know. We don't know. It's deep. We know it's deep. We know the ocean is deep. But it's called the abyss. In specific, where that is, it's called the Matthias Abyss. Abyss is still in that name. Not the only place with that in the name of abyss. Which is kind of funny because I've called myself a bitch for a really long time. I can make fun of myself. You know. By veterinary standards after being born in the year of the dog. By Chinese zodiac. How easy is it to say a bitch abyss? Just very, very. It's just a couple letters off, you know, in certain regards, and then I do have to laugh. I do have to because, you know, I did look at the Corps as far as the Marine Corps aspect, and then there was that devil dog, and okay, yes, I know I'm not an official Marine, obviously, because I didn't go into the Marine Corps. Nonetheless, I have to. I always had to giggle with Mad Dog Mattis. It was just, oh. I bet he's vicious. But nonetheless, oh, you mad dog, you little mad dog, puppy dog. I wouldn't want to piss that guy off, by the way. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just gonna, you know, but I am the way I am. And so, you know, oh. You mad little puppy dog. I want to find out how mad that guy can get. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm sure there are people who have been in platoons and battalions of his that are like, yeah, no, that's a guy you don't want to piss off. That's a guy you don't want to piss off. Yeah, no, Got chewed out by him. Still can hear those words ringing. Just say. But I'm also the same person that like, oh look, there's a bunch of seal poopy dogs, you know, like sea lions. This is a little sea poopy dog, despite the fact that you can rip up so much flesh with your little TV, so little teeth. Well, Shark, you're so cute. It's your little baby. Oh, look, it's a grizzly bear. It's a little tab bear. It's just a little fluffy tab bear. Look at his little tabby paws. Look at the little tabby paws. I'm that person. Apparently there are not that many that are like, oh, who's a little grizzly bear? Look at that little ear. You know. Nonetheless, going back to the Matthias Abyss, the irony of it's just missing one letter. Mattis, I. Just one letter and then it's bad. Just saying. And then, you know, I grew up in New Jersey. And I'm born in the year of the dog. And there's like this hockey team that I'm a fan of. And I like hockey. And then there's also a lore. Isn't that funny with the Navy thing? Fishy. But I actually mean L-O-R-E, not L-U-R-E. You know, a. In the pines, to be specific, where that is known. Very much so. You puppy dog. Just saying. And so, not the only place with a lore like that, no denying that. You could almost make a joke when I was in Washington State at a location in Spokane and like make a joke of little baby, puppy dogs. Took me a while to figure that out. Nonetheless, you can make a joke because there are people from the Pines that they might be able to take a look at that and be like, yeah, so that actually like is like just a fairy-sized version of what was seen in the Pines. Like little babies compared to what was in the trees. Or, going from branch to branch to branch to branch. Compared, different color too. I mean, you can read that up. Nonetheless, bringing that back around. Taxes are important, but so is budgeting. Really important. So, when lockdown is lifted, what you gonna do? So, you guys have a good one. Let's see if this